Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first episode proper of the SimCity 4 Masterclass. My name is Smalina MK93, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about bridges. Now, a lot of people struggle with bridges. They see them as hard to make, hard to get to look right, and generally tough to build overall. However, with a bit of preparation, a bit of foresight and a bit of common sense, we can make a good looking bridge pretty easily, and I'm going to show you how in this video. Firstly, let me show you what not to do. You see this river in front of you on the screen. Let's try to build a road bridge over it. Immediately, I can see a couple of problems. The first one is that the abutments are quite steep. Secondly, there is an ugly retaining wall here and here on each of the abutments, which makes the bridge look a bit daft. Thirdly, the bridge isn't really tall enough, and so it looks a bit stupid going over a big river. It's not too bad in this case, but if you had it any lower, it would begin to look a bit daft. So let's quickly delete this bridge and figure out how to build bridges properly. Before we do that though, I want to point out something quite important. You'll notice I didn't choose the default type of bridge. If I did, as most people probably would, I'd get this even worse raised bridge which has this horrible steep hump in the middle. Not very realistic at all. So how do we build a more realistic bridge? As I said at the start, the key is preparation. Ideally, we want the approach to each side of the bridge to be at the same height. Now, how do we do that? Firstly, let's mark out where we want to build our bridge. Here, this seems like a good place. However, if we go here, we get a slightly shorter span, which is more realistic. Remember, bridges are expensive to build, and we want to keep them as short as possible, because of that. Having decided where we want to put our bridge, we need to flatten the abutments, so we get a nice smooth, flat approach into the bridge. To do this, we place single road tiles, like so. Be careful here, the game requires one flat tile on each side of the bridge. Or, sorry, not one flat tile, one tile of land on each side of the bridge, in order to let you build the bridge. Failed to do that, and that's one reason for getting the ugly retaining walls. Next, having built one abutment, just drag out, move the cursor, and use single road tiles to create the other abutment. You may notice at this point that we have a bit of a height discrepancy. This is clearly taller than this. In order to make a bridge look realistic, we need to make sure that these abutments are at exactly the same height. This is something a lot of people don't do, and that's why they have trouble making their bridges look right. So how do we get the tiles up to the same height? Well, first of all, we need to know how high they are. To find out how high they are, we need to use a cheat called the terrainquery cheat. For this cheat, you need the Extra Cheats DLL, which is available to download off the Simtropolis Exchange. I will put a link in the description for you guys, of course. Having downloaded and installed that, we go into the game, press Ctrl X, and then type in terrainquery. It's all one word. Press Enter. Now, when we activate the query tool by pressing slash on the keyboard, you see, as well as the game telling us what it is, we have these coordinates. The coordinate we want to pay attention to is Y, which gives us the vertical height. You can see on the left side, it's 281.8. That's measured in meters. Over here, the height is 275.5 meters. So you can see that's quite a difference. 6.3 meters to be more precise. So we need to raise this by 6.3 meters. In the NAM, we have ground lifters to do the job. However, they only come in multiples of 0.5 meters, but not all multiples of 0.5 meters, but they only come in multiples of 0.5 meters. The difference here is 6.3 meters, which is not a multiple of 0.5 meters. So, in order to get a multiple of 0.5 meters, we need to flatten randomly around on the terrain around the abutment to be raised or lowered as appropriate. On this occasion, we got lucky. This abutment, or this tile, is at 269.3 meters. This tile is at 281.8. The difference is, I believe, 12.5 meters, which is a multiple of 0.5 meters, of course. So we're fine here. What we do now is we extend the tile that is at the correct height so that it matches our abutment profile. Our abutment will now be at a multiple of 0.5 meters away from the height of this abutment. Having done that, we just need to use the NAM ground lifters to make up the difference. In this case, we'll need a combination of hole diggers and ground lifters to get the job done. We want to raise the terrain by 12.5 meters. To do that, we'll start with the 15.5 meter hole digger, or ground lifter, sorry. We will lower by 12 meters, and then we will raise again by 15 meters. This makes a rise of 12.5 meters, as you may figure out. Having obtained the correct rise, simply flatten out the abutment. If we query it, we'll notice it's now at the right height. No, it isn't. That's because I actually made a mistake. This should have been 6.5 meter rise and not a 12.5 meter rise. So we need to correct it very quickly. To do that, raise the terrain by 8 meters and then lower it by 14. You should be able to figure out the correct combination of ground lifters and hole diggers for each situation. Now if we query it, we'll see that we are at the correct height. Before building the bridge, actually no, now that our abutment's at the correct height, we can go ahead and build the bridge. Drag over to the first tile of the abutment. The type of bridge you choose is very important. You need to make sure that the bridge looks good and is appropriate for the situation and what it is trying to cross. A plain road bridge is fine for most general spans, and it's probably what we'll use here. Arch bridges look good for tall spans. Old trestle bridges or covered bridges are good for historic bridges on minor roads or railway routes. Truss bridges are good for generic spans. Cantilever and suspension bridges should be reserved for your longer spans. Here, ideally, I like to have as few supports as possible, within reason. Obviously, we want it to look well supported, but we don't want too many supports. If we have too many supports like here, the bridge looks a bit stupid. If we have to have supports, which we often do, I like to make sure there's a bit of symmetry in the supports. You can see here there's roughly the same distance between the supports and the edge of the tile, which looks nice. If necessary, make sure your bridge is okay for ferries. Ideally, if your bridge is too low for ferries to pass under it, raise your abutments and make it taller. Do not use this slider, or you will get big retaining walls on each side, which you don't want. Here, I think I'm going to stick with a plain bridge. It looks fine. You can see, as the bridge builds, that we don't have a retaining wall on this side, we don't have any retaining walls on this side, and if we smoothen out the approach to the bridge using the rail tool, or whatever tool you like, depending on your slope mod, which you should have, we get a very nice approach to the bridge. In this case we get a lovely cliff on this side of the bridge, which I quite like. But you can see we have no retaining walls. Our approaches to the bridge are nice and smooth and flat. Our transition onto the bridge is nice and smooth and flat. The bridge itself looks good. It's nicely elevated. That's important. I believe I covered the importance of elevating your bridges at the start of this video. You can see here that elevating the bridge has made it look quite good. And it looks appropriate for the situation. So that is a complete bridge. I'm happy with that. The bridge looks good. It's appropriate for the situation. It's the right type for the job. The approaches are smooth. And it's a good looking realistic bridge. And that is how you make bridges the easy way in SimCity 4. That concludes this masterclass video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any requests, please make use of the comments section. I do give priority to audience requests for this series. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Smiley MK, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now.